Hello, lovely friend. I am Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
And this is the Real Health and Weight Loss Podcast. Hello, my lovely friend. Fabulous to have you here on today's podcast. Dr. Mary here, joined by the fabulous Dr. Lucy, my lovely friend. How are you going?
Again, totally awesome. Summer, my favourite time of the year. I just love longer evenings. We live down in Melbourne. We get beautiful sunlight. You know, it's still light at 9 o'clock. You're outside in the evening. It's just good for the soul. So, yeah, I'm great.
I love it. I have a slightly opposing opinion, not completely, but with kids, especially with my little toddler, trying to convince him he has to go to bed at 7:30. It's not nighttime. It's not nighttime. So we had to differentiate nighttime from bedtime. Yeah, so it's a little challenge there.
Yes, I can imagine. I do remember those days. And I remember actually even my own brain doing that to me as a little kid, thinking, it's still light at 9 o'clock. Why would I want to go to bed at 8 o'clock? Like, honestly, who wants to do that? So, yes.
You're crazy, Mum.
I know. All right, this is a hotly requested topic this round, and we are talking protein powders. So, interestingly, somebody just sent us an email in this morning asking about specific collagen brands, and we're not going to go into that in this episode, but we are talking about where protein powders might fit in to your health and weight loss journey. And what you'll notice is I've caveated it with might, because we're not tribal.
No.
There's no rules. But what we want to do is give you the information so that you can be empowered to make a decision on what is right for you on whatever time. So again, you might make a decision that's right for you for this week, this month, and you may change your mind later because you're allowed to.
You are the boss of you.
Excellent. So the first thing I want to do is, protein is a macronutrient. It's made up of amino acids. So they're all linked together. And we have what we call essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids, which is a confusing term. Essential means you've got to eat them. So
because we don't make them.
So it is essential that you get them in your diet. Non-essential means that our body can make them. So we can, part with autophagy, with recycling, with, the building blocks that are already existing within our body, we can make particular amino acids. So clever. Aren't we clever?
We are so clever.
I know. So then we go, okay, so that's a macronutrient. There are health implications if you don't get enough protein, and we see this in, severe famines and things where people develop, and particularly children develop, chronic diseases that berry and things that we don't see in Australia in particular, and maybe wherever you are in the world. But we do know that long-term that protein deficiency is problematic. And one of the things we're seeing in our modern world in older people is a condition called sarcopenia. So, Maz, would you like to explain sarcopenia in simple language?
Yeah, so simply put, sarcopenia is when there is muscle wasting and thinning of the muscles, and that it's a bad thing. So it results in decreased strength, increased falls risk. It's associated with metabolic ill health and premature death, and it's definitely something that we want to avoid. So sarcopenia, not great. We want to be able to keep our muscle mass and keep our bones and muscles strong as we age and enter our glory years. And
Indeed.
Getting adequate protein is an important part of avoiding sarcopenia.
Absolutely. So our thoughts are that in general, we probably undereat protein because, the Australian diet, the Western diet, so this is Australia, England, US, is heavily carbohydrate based, because honestly, carbs are quick and easy. They kind of fill a hole. Most people find them pretty tasty. And so for the majority of people, they'll have a really, carbs come with every meal, and often they form the basis of it. and protein seems to sort of get slipped away.
Mm.
So I was going to say, so this is the opposite of our build a plate formula, where we go pick your protein first, add some veggies. If the protein's very lean, you can add a bit of fat to it. If the protein's really fatty, then don't add too much fat. Add some flavour to make it delicious, bit of salt, seasoning, whatnot. And people go, oh, where are the carbs? The carbs are in the vegetables.
Yeah.
So, your much maligned broccoli.
Love broccoli.
Broccoli is carbohydrates. They're in there. So it's not like you're missing a macronutrient. We're just reducing them. And again, if you've got a family or you've got somebody who tolerates carbohydrates, then you can add, extra carbs to their plate if you want to add rice or pasta or potato or whatever to their plate, that's fine. Again, it's not going to kill you.
No, definitely not. Yeah. We encourage people to eat, to really prioritise their protein. And often we encourage people to eat a lot more protein than they already are. And this is, an adjustment for people because a diet that, our protein take's moderate. We encourage people to take a moderate protein. It's not like a super high protein diet, but definitely want people to prioritise it and make sure they get enough. Because having adequate amounts of protein in your diet, it doesn't just reduce your risk of sarcopenia and help you build muscle. It also improves your metabolic health. It's associated with, improved outcomes in diabetes, to help even avoid diabetes. It helps with weight loss. It helps with satiety. It really is such an extremely important macronutrient. And because, we encourage people to prioritise their protein and really make it the star of their meals, we always get asked about protein powders, because it just seems so much easier. If you're used to having tea and toast for breakfast, and now we're saying, have some protein for brekkie. That would be a really good thing to do for your health, for your metabolic health, for your longevity. That could just seem a bit hard. And the idea of being able to have, some protein in a packet is really appealing. And just like to discuss this a little bit more now about, how, when, why, if packet protein is something that you want to include in your life.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the first thing we need to know is that protein, well, A, we've said it's good, but B, it's given a health halo and now used in marketing of processed food. So there are now a gazillion products everywhere that will tell you their thing is high protein. So beware of that, because that's a marketing tactic. And it might say high protein, and when you compare the high protein with the normal product, it's like 1 gram per 100 grams more or 2 grams per 100 grams more. Like that, honestly, that's rubbish. So just beware of that as a concept. The second thing is there is a vast difference between whole food protein and protein powders. So protein powders are an ultra-processed product. You can't just sort of dry out some meat and make it a protein. So when we're talking about...
You can, but then you're looking at jerky or biltong.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You can't just dry out a meat and get a protein powder. Yeah.
Powder, no. So when we're looking at processing of food, it's important to put it into sort of 3 categories. There's unprocessed, there's processed, and then there's ultra-processed. And so we need to make sure that we don't lump the 2 in together. But ultra-processed is really, it's done in a factory, and it's where the end product looks almost nothing like the original products that were the components of this end product.
Yeah. So common sources of protein in protein powders would be like whey protein from dairy, soy, pea, hemp. They're probably the most common. Casein from dairy as well.
Yeah, and collagen. Collagen protein is in a lot of protein powders as well.
Absolutely,
so, collagen is an animal. So the animal-based products are, the collagen, whey, and some of them have casein, as you said. Plant is, pea, hemp. I think some use rice rice proteins as well. But
Yeah.
and then, again, just a little side note, wheat protein is gliadin, and it's super problematic because that is what people with celiac disease can't have, and it's what people find a lot of gut problems with that as well.
Yeah, it can stimulate sort of those irritable bowel syndrome symptoms for a lot of people.
Yeah. So the other thing to know is there is also a difference between protein powders and meal replacements. And I think, again, it's important to know that. So a protein powder is literally just powdered protein of some sort. A meal replacement comes usually with the protein, carbohydrate, fats, vitamins, minerals, flavors, things to make it palatable. And it has been nutritionally formulated, which also means that some of the formulation, again, it's not a formulation for every person, because, again, as you all know, we firmly believe that if you are insulin resistant, then one of the most effective, not the only effective way, but one of the most effective ways to reduce your insulin resistance is to lower your carbohydrates. And yet many of these meal replacement shakes have huge amounts of carbohydrates. So they're not actually going to do anything to improve your metabolic health.
They're just low calorie, essentially.
Yeah.
And we've discussed this in many, many times over about how just low calorie, particularly in the form of processed low calorie foods, of which these diet shakes are. That's what meal replacements. We're often talking about diet shakes, man shake, lady shakes, to name a few. They have quite a lot of carbs in them, and they're processed, and they also don't do a lot to reduce your hunger. And if anyone who's ever been on them, people usually experience quite significant hunger when they're taking these meal replacement products.
Absolutely. Now, we have a cohort of people in our community who physically struggle to eat large amounts of protein. So, again, these are people who have had bariatric surgery, if you had a gastric sleeve, if you're taking injectable weight loss medications. I'm going to tell you, it is hard to eat the amount of protein that we're suggesting, because protein is highly satiating. It's not necessarily a volume thing. It's a satiating thing.
You just feel full. Yep.
You feel so full, which is, where I'm always going, oh, huzzah, great.
I love it. Have a nice high protein meal and I feel fabulously full. It's wonderful. But yes, if you're struggling to get enough food in anyway, then that can be a problem.
Absolutely. And this is really, again, something that we talk a lot about with the injectable weight loss drugs and people with bariatric surgery, is the concept of malnutrition within these cohorts. So there's a study recently released around the GLP-1, so the Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaros, talking about the discontinuation syndrome, which means when people take them, yes, they lose weight, they decide to stop them, they do regain the weight, but they end up metabolically worse off because of the sarcopenia that's come. So the way to manage that risk is to, again, ensure you have adequate protein and to make sure you're doing strength training, exercise. And that's just not walking. It actually has to be resistant work, because otherwise that rebound and worse off than you were, that's terrible. It's bad. It's not. You're not going to be living your glory years.
No one wants that. No.
So then we go, okay, well, some people that may find eating whole protein difficult. Okay, so we've got sort of three categories, Maz. And I think, again, we've talked to bariatrics, we've talked to people using weight loss drugs, and then we've actually got people who are in what you like to refer to often as the time sandwich.
Totally. I'm a busy human, and I know that I am not alone in this. I'm not Robinson Crusoe, but solo mum, little kids, working, time pressures, time sandwiches all the time. Look, I can honestly see the appeal of a tea and toast breakfast, as the idea of, boiling a couple of eggs just can seem a bit hard. And I think if there is a group of people where you've got an intact gut, haven't had bariatric surgery, not on injectable weight loss medications, but are time poor, and having a convenient high protein source is great. And that, I think that there are a few ways in which protein powders may come into that. But let's talk about could we talk about how would you recommend people use protein powders? So when we come back to the beautiful group of people you were first talking about, people who've had bariatric surgery, people who are on injectable weight loss medications, how might they use protein powders or meal replacements? Would they not use meal replacements? Would they use protein powders? What would you recommend, Dr. Lucy?
Yeah. Oh, great question. So I think, again, the two camps, there's meal replacements and then there's protein powders. Protein powder is really a supplement. So it means that you've got sort of your whole foods already going, you're already eating sort of maybe plenty of veggies, you're getting your vitamins and your minerals, but you're just finding that you can't eat, 150 grams of steak. It's just not working for you. So there's a couple of ways in which you can do it. So you can supplement your meal with a protein powder. Now, again, we're not part of this company. In fact, I've never really even spoken to them, but there is a brand of protein powder called Tasteless Protein, which is sort of a good name, but it means that people always go, oh, what sort of protein do you recommend? I go, Tasteless Protein. They go, yeah, but what brand? That is the brand.
Tasteless Protein is the brand, yeah.
And part of the reason I like it is that it is just protein. There's no fillers. There's no bulking agents. There's no sweeteners. There's no, nasties. There's no emulsifiers. And not only is it, so it's a collagen-based protein, so it's not going to be suitable if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, but it's also got the tryptophan added.
What do you mean by that, Lucy?
Well,
explain.
Yes. So collagen is an incomplete protein source because tryptophan is an essential amino acid. So remember at the start where we talked about the amino acids that you can make and not make.
Yeah, there's 9 essential amino acids that we need, and we need to eat them. Yeah.
Yes. And tryptophan is one of them, but you will not find any tryptophan in standard collagen products. So this is why I think this one is a good base. And you can do it. You can use it in a couple of ways, but I'm going to give you a little. So I have bought a packet, some of this. And one of the reasons I wanted to try it was that I think with all my swimming, my hair's a bit dry. Okay. And we're going to do a hair episode coming up because hair's important for women in general. And men,
everyone.
Again, let's just everyone. Your hair is important, and my hair was breaking off, and it's all crappy. And I thought, maybe I need to add some collagen in. Now I could do bone broth, but here's one of the things: I haven't made time. I don't have time. There's a whole heap of reasons in my brain why I don't make bone broth consistently. So I thought, I'll give this a try, and I added it to my morning coffee, and it comes in a scoop. You just plonk it in. I thought, that'll be easy. Anyway. I normally have morning coffee. I do morning fasting. I'm not hungry in the morning. Well, after this, I was hungry. I thought, wow,
stimulate your appetite.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And this is the thing that we need to be aware of with powdered versions of whole foods. So we have these things called incretin hormones. In fact, the injectable weight loss medications are based on these incretin hormones. And they're released they're released in all sorts, or we have receptors in all sorts of our body, but they're released based on the particle size of food in your gut. So, and what that does, and it's interesting because it does actually stimulate insulin, which sort of seems weird. Like we're always banging on
there's
about
different types of incretin hormones that do different things.
So part of it does stimulate insulin. However, what it actually does is slow down the passage of food in your gut. And so whilst on one hand it's telling your pancreas to make a little bit more insulin, it's also drip feeding out the things for which the pancreas needs to make the insulin for. And so it really, to quote an old COVID term, flattens the curve. So instead of getting a big whomp, you get it sort of dripped out slowly, which is part of why protein makes us feel full. This is whole protein. However, when you take that whole protein and turn it into a powder, suddenly you lose that incretin effect, and it's kind of delivered into the bloodstream much more quickly, and the pancreas has to react quickly.
Yeah, you get a bigger insulin spike.
Yeah, and that is then what stimulates your hunger earlier in the morning. So I thought, wow, that was interesting. So that was the experiment that I thought, well, I won't be repeating that. Now, again, I have an intact gastrointestinal stomach. I haven't had bariatric surgery, and I'm not taking injectables. So the response for other people may well be different, but this was my response. So then, as part of my other experiment, I was doing some berries, Greek yogurt with some nuts as one of my meals. And the thing with that meal is it is often a bit low in protein. And I know it's an appealing meal because it's quick. You don't have to cook anything. You're not having to get out the air fryer. But it is a bit low in protein. So I thought I'd just mix my protein in with my Greek yogurt to basically supplement its protein quantity. And that worked really well. So I was happy with that.
I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah. So I think that's an option.
And do you think that the meal replacements have a role for people who've had bariatric surgery or on injectable weight loss medications, or are they something that's best avoided?
I definitely think they have a role, particularly one of the side effects of the GLP-1s is initially nausea, in particular nausea. And I mean, they stop your hunger, like that's part of their job. But for some people, they stop it like really intensely to the point where they can't eat anything. They need something that's kind of easy to eat. And we also know that with the GLP-1s, the side effects are that if you eat something that's too high in carbohydrates, people get really bad diarrhea, or too high in fats. So again, there are things that we would normally recommend for people to eat to keep them full that just don't work if you're on injectable weight loss meds. So yeah, a meal replacement, so not just supplementing or not just having collagen in your coffee, can be really helpful for you because it gives you all the vitamins and minerals you need. However, there are some things to be aware of, and that is, again, not all meal replacement shakes are created equally.
Very true.
Yeah. So there's a couple on the market that again, knowing, we don't get any kickback here, but I guess the things that I would recommend people do, and again, the supermarket is full of these. Everywhere.
So many.
So many of them.
Absolutely, yeah, everywhere.
And the majority of those are rubbish because they're filled with, again, emulsifiers, fillers, and they're pretty high, most of them in carbohydrate. So they're using, particularly soy protein, pea protein is pretty cheap. So again, there's two kind of out there. So there's one by a gorgeous doctor from Australia called Angela Kwong, Dr. Angela Kwong. We had her on the podcast recently. Again, she's another weight loss doctor, and she found that her patients were struggling and she couldn't find a meal replacement that she was happy with. One that was low enough in carbohydrate, that didn't have bazillions of fillers, that wasn't full of, maltodextrin or sucralose or horrible sweeteners. And so she formulated her own, which I think is pretty good. Now, again, from a real food perspective, it's not perfect. But as you know, we're not tribal.
Yeah, that's right.
So, it's sort of like, okay, well, if you are going to choose a meal replacement shake, this one is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's called Enlighten Me. And again, we'll put the link in the show notes. We don't get any endorsement from this. I just thought, look, it's good to know. The second one that is out there, which again, slightly anxious to recommend this, but it's not the best, it's not the worst. And it's Ben Bickman. So lots of you who listen to our podcast will know Ben Bickman. He's a wonderful PhD scientist who's done lots. He's very good at being able to explain science in layman's terms. He's very good at dissecting rubbish science and producing good quality science. So we do really love it. And again, he recognised that sometimes people can't always eat real food. They need a solution. So he came up with one. So he's got his product. The only dud thing in it is it does have maltodextrin in it.
Yeah, just a
sort of annoying
sweetener that kind of raises insulin, and it's not perfect. Not perfect.
It's not perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does have, good fat sources and yeah. So I kind of, it's there, but it's like right down my list. If somebody gave you a bag, maybe use it, but I'd probably not go out and purchase that one. And then there are ones that I don't recommend, or we don't recommend in particular, basically almost anything from the supermarket. You mentioned the Lady Shake, the Man Shake before. Honestly, their marketing machine is incredible. They have, billboards on buses. They're everywhere. They're, providing this tempting solution that really is garbage.
Not really a solution.
No. And whilst I'll link the tasteless protein in the show notes, I do want you to be aware of another product they sell that I don't recommend, we don't recommend, called protein water. And they market this around the idea that some people don't like a milky drink, that you don't want necessarily to have your protein, in coffee or whatever. Honestly, two things. One, you can add this tasteless protein to anything. You can put in your tea if you want. So, but this tasteless water hoo-ha is flavoured, really highly processed garbage that comes with sucralose and, again, a whole heap of other things. And sucralose raises insulin. It's the sort of opposite of what we're trying to do. And what some people I see doing is buying this product, thinking, again, protein halo, adding it to their water bottles and then sipping it all day. Yeah.
Not so good. So we've got to read the labels and keep your eyes open, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, if your goal is to improve your metabolic health, and honestly, that is the goal to long-lasting weight loss, then sipping protein water all day isn't actually going to help you achieve your goal. Now, you may not have known that because the marketing's so enticing, but it won't.
Yeah.
And I guess the final thing that I guess I just want to remind people of is the reason, again, we bang on about whole food proteins is not just the incretin effect, like that's great, it's wonderful, but the second thing is the thermogenic effect of protein. So, Maz, do you want to just explain that briefly so people really have a great understanding of why we are always banging on?
Yeah, so real food is always going to be superior to processed food. And the thermogenic effect of protein is one reason why. So it actually takes a fair bit of energy for us to break down protein from whole food sources. That's your eggs, your meat, even, the protein in plant-based sources, the protein in tofu and tempeh and in real, minimally processed real foods. It takes energy and effort, and so we actually sort of burn energy in digesting protein. And not to mention the fact that all of these whole protein sources are also wrapped up in vitamins and minerals and lots of other things that we need, that we actually do get a bit of a workout just from eating them, which is fabulous.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. Like, you're just lying around burning calories for free. Like, honestly, that couldn't be any easier. So, yeah, so my loves. So I guess the summary is, again, we're not tribal. We're certainly not going to crucify you if you're using a meal replacement shake short term. We before we started recording, we coined a phrase, emergency foods.
Yes.
So There are definitely times, those times where your life feels a tiny bit out of control, where you really literally feel like you're just running from one thing to the other and you've got nothing, you haven't even done the shopping, you've got no food, you just think, what am I going to, I've got no space, I have got no capacity for the next week. What am I going to do?
Mm.
Yeah. Again, you could have a good quality protein shake. That would be fine. Okay.
It would. You could also have, tins of tuna and biltong as well.
Yes.
But, you totally have a high quality meal replacement shake then if you need to.
Yeah. And I think the important thing is to think about the idea that meal replacements will never be a long-term option. Like they honestly shouldn't be, because of the processing that goes in them. Short-term options, again, short-term, particularly while you're commencing your injectable weight loss medications, or particularly once you've just had bariatric surgery, those sorts of things, or preparing for bariatric surgery, they're a tool. And if you've got a day where once a week you go, oh my God, well, you know what, Lucy, I do a 16-hour shift at work. God knows anybody shouldn't be doing that, but I do know in the medical world it does happen.
It's pretty common.
And I don't actually have. I'm just going to take a shake that day. Well, again, you do you, but just choose one that's again the best for you if possible.
Love it.
Love it. All right, beautiful peeps. As I said, we're continuing myth busting, helping you make decisions that are helpful to you without judgment, and know that whatever you decide to do, you're the boss. And hopefully we can just add to your knowledge base so that you can make decisions without the undue influence of marketing sources that stand for enormous financial gain.
Yeah. Beautiful. See you later, gorgeous ones.
Bye for now.
The information shared on the Real Health and Weight Loss podcast, including show notes and links, provides general information only. It is not a substitute, nor is it intended to provide individualized medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor can it be construed as such. Please consult your doctor for any medical concerns.